I call the member for Morani.
Deputy Speaker, I rise to make a brief contribution to the Public Health and Other Legislation Extension of Expiring Provisions Amendment Bill 2022. And I also would like to thank all the people in my electorate and right throughout Queensland that have worked tirelessly to be able to maintain the prevention of COVID spreading throughout the state of Queensland and also other states. Queensland's state of emergency laws and the new legislation proposing a step-down approach to the current emergency powers framework in Queensland was introduced to Parliament on the 1st of September. This bill was forwarded to the Health Committee for review by the 14th of October 2022, which I am actually a part of, and thanks to all the committee and the Secretariat and all the stuff and the witnesses that have come in. The new bill sought to replace the current emergency framework with a new set of temporary and targeted powers which would allow the Chief Health Office to only issue public health directions across a few key areas. Those directions could only be issued if the CHA believed it was reasonably necessary to respond to a serious risk to the public health system or community, give effect to the National Cabinet decision, or give effect to advice from national advisory bodies, e.g. AHPPC. Many people I know feel fairly strongly that this is an ongoing use of emergency powers in Queensland is unnecessary and that the whole lot should be allowed to expire at the end of this October 2022, as they are supposed to. I agree by this date Queenslanders will have been living under a state of emergency for nearly 3 years, and I also believe such powers should only be exercised by a minister who is democratically elected representative of the people here in Queensland, who is accountable to the people for all actions taken, and the CHO is none of these things, neither elected or accountable that I can find. There is also an issue with few broadly worded phrases like serious risk that have not been defined in the bill. The meaning is left entirely up to the CHO's own discretion. And I'm also concerned with the bill's proposal to extend emergency power provisions at the Corrective Services Facility for another year. Apart from that, I find the virtual silence on the introduction of the bill, both in the mainstream media and elsewhere, very strange. The departmental briefing paper states a confidential consultation paper was about the proposed changes to the Chief Health Officer's power was distributed and to targeted stakeholders. That sounds suspiciously like the stakeholders consulted on the bill are being prevented by government from either discussing the contents of the bill, either publicly or with their membership. If so, that's disgraceful, and this is a significant issue, and there should be a wide-ranging and open public debate on how the state stepped away from the ongoing state of emergency powers framework. We all saw the storm of controversy that erupted when the Australian revealed the shroud of secrecy governing the Queensland's government consultations regarding proposed new environmental laws. Stakeholders were forced to sign an unprecedented confidentiality deed before they were allowed to see the proposed amendments. The deed prevented stakeholders from discussing any of the proposals, either publicly or with members. I sincerely hope the same tactics weren't used in this bill. We were the first state to declare an emergency on the 29th of January 2020, and the Premier said at the time, Queensland acted early and strengthened the laws because of public safety is paramount. Since then, we have seen our economy smashed, small businesses decimated, hundreds of thousands of jobs lost, and people's lives turned upside down through mandates and through direct acts by what's happened with this COVID-19. All sacrificed on the altar of public safety, along with free speech, the right to peaceful assembly, the right to work, freedom of conscience, bodily autonomy, government transparency and public trust in our institutions. Even worse has been the fundamental change in our relations with each other, a change clouded by suspicion and distrust. This new bill seeks to prolong all this. It is also important to note that the government's transitional regulation-making powers under Part 9 of the original Emergency Response Act 2020 will remain in place for a further 2 years after the expiry date, and this means until near the end of 2024, presuming, of course, that the government doesn't extend the date again for a fifth time, when the Health Minister said that Queensland must move from an elimination strategy to suppress strategy and eventually into learning to live with COVID-19. Her words had an ominous ring. I suspect she didn't mean it the way you and I might hope. In fact, the new mantra of learning to live with COVID is starting to sound a lot like learning to live with the new normal. And either way, we can't afford to let this charade go on one day longer, Mr Deputy Speaker. The report fault lines an independent review into Australia's response to COVID-19 led by ex-public service Peter Sheargold also found some lockdowns and border closures weren't necessary and schools should have remained open. Governments and public servants were making decisions in a fog of uncertainty, the review said. According to this independent review, Australia's response to COVID-19 exacerbated existing inequalities within society that were including Queenslanders, which urges the overreach be avoided in dealing with future such crises. Those bearing the brunt of the pandemic, Mr Deputy Speaker, included low socio-economic families, women, children, those in aged care, people with disabilities, temporary migrants and multicultural communities, the review says. It says lockdowns and border closures should have been used less, school kept open in the main, and the older people better protected in aged care system known to have pre-existing problems. Decision-making was not transparent enough, Mr Deputy Speaker. The harm caused should stop now. We have sunset clauses, and that's the end of this month, and we should use it. The time to end the emergency powers in Queensland, we just can't go on living this way. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.